Yo, what is good, everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prodigy Podcast. My name is Tyler Anderson. I am your host. We are recording this on Saturday, November 8th, 2025. By the time it gets posted, or by the time you're hearing this, it'll probably be Sunday, the day of the NFL games, or the majority of them. So sorry for getting this out a little bit later. But in this episode, we're going to be recapping the Thursday night game, if you want to call it a game, between the Broncos and the Raiders, previewing the rest of the Week 10 games, and then most importantly, getting into my starts of the week. Before we do that, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you are enjoying the podcast. And if you want video, head over to Fantasy Football Prodigy over on YouTube. So first things first, let's get this Thursday night football game out of the way. It was disgusting. It was so boring to watch. The Broncos at home against the Raiders. They got the win. The Broncos did. If you can even call it a win, but the final score was 10-7. Broncos are now 8-2, kind of a fraudulent 8-2 if you ask me. The Raiders are now 2-7. I played Bo Nix over Baker Mayfield at the last second, and Bo Nix went out there and threw 150 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Oh, but he's mobile. Did he offer anything on the ground? No. 5 for -2. 5 for -2. So, he was a bust. Geno Smith on the other side, no better. 16 of 26, 143, and 1 interception. No touchdowns. The only touchdown for the Raiders went to Ashton Genty, who was 19 for 60 and said touchdown on the ground. He added 3 catches for 3 yards through the air, so nothing really there. What else? Brock Bowers, huge disappointment. After a week-winning 3-touchdown game against Jacksonville last week, he comes out 1 for 31. So I guess if you're going to have 1 catch, it wasn't a touchdown, but 31 yards is pretty decent. The leading receiver was Tyler Lockett, 5 for 44 on 6 targets. Just disgusting. No Jacoby Myers anymore because he was traded to Jacksonville. So for the Broncos, Dobbins was 18 for 77 on the ground, 1 for 7 through the air. He was the clear lead back still over RJ Harvey, who was 4 for 9 on the ground, 2 for 9 through the air on 3 targets. The leading receiver had 1 catch for 43 yards. Troy Franklin was the target leader with 9, turned into 5 for 40 and a touchdown. So he was decent if you started him. And then Cortland Sutton, very touchdown dependent at this point. 4 targets, 3 for 24. Not sure what the deal is there, but gross game. Enough time spent on that. Let's look forward to the rest of the games this week. So we're going to start with my starts of the week. Some guys that I want to highlight that I really like, I think are good matchups that I don't want you to give up on, have big upside, whatever the case may be. I'll get into it, and then we'll preview the rest of the game. So quarterback start of the week, Jaxson Dart of the New York Giants on the road against the Chicago Bears. He might be missing some key offensive weapons, but rookie Jaxson Dart has been getting it done for fantasy. Since taking over as the starting quarterback for the Giants in week 4, Dart is the quarterback 3 overall and the quarterback 5 in fantasy points per game. The key to Dart's fantasy production has been his rushing ability. He's one of the most dangerous threats as a runner amongst all quarterbacks in the league, and he's rushed for a touchdown in 5 of 6 starts. The matchup is good as the Bears have given up the 6th most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks on the season. Just last week, they allowed Joe Flacco to finish as the quarterback 2 on the week in an epic shootout. I think he's the real deal, and I can't wait to see what he looks like in the years to come with a healthy offense around him. But even as things stand currently, I like Jaxson Dart as a mid-quarterback 1 in week 10. Moving on to the running back position. Running back start of the week, Rico Dowdle of the Carolina Panthers at home against the New Orleans Saints. Rico is officially in must-start territory. Even with Chuba Hubbard back and healthy, Rico has taken over the backfield as the clear lead back, and he has been spectacular in that role. Whenever he's been given the opportunity to be the workhorse running back, he's been a week winner. Over 30 points in weeks 5 and 6, a down couple of weeks while splitting work with Chuba once he came back from injury, and then 27 points last week when the team shifted to making Rico the true number 1 in the backfield. The Panthers are 5.5-point favorites at home, and I think they're going to want to pound the rock and give Rico 20 plus touches. I like Rico Dowdle as a mid running back 1 in week 10. At wide receiver start of the week, Odunze of the Chicago Bears at home against the New York Giants. He's been up and down this season, and he's coming off a goose where he didn't have a single catch despite his team scoring 47 points in an epic shootout with the Bengals. Still, I wanted to bring him up this week because I would avoid overreacting him and... I just totally misspoke. I wanted to bring him up this week because I would avoid overreacting and putting him on the bench in most cases. The week prior to this disappearing act, he saw 10 targets and caught 7 of them for 114 yards. He's a talented player with a great matchup against the Giants, and I think the Bears will make a point of getting the ball to their star wide receiver. I'm not leaving his upside on my bench, and I like Odunze as a high wide receiver 2 in week 10. And then finally, tight end. This is a difficult position to nail down, but tight end start of the week, Oronde Gadsden of the Los Angeles Chargers at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The rookie has 4 straight games with at least 5 catches and 68 yards. Now he takes on a Steelers defense that, before shutting down the Colts last week, was mostly bad all season. They currently allow the 3rd most fantasy points per game to tight ends on the season. And even though they held Tyler Warren in check last week, I don't know how you bench Gadsden after what he's been doing. The Chargers have 4 great pass catching options on their offense, and they can't all be great every week. So there is always some risk when playing any of these guys. But when you consider how lacking the tight end position is, Gadsden is essentially a must start at this point. I like Oronde Gadsden as a high tight end 1 in week 10. Those are my starts of the week, ladies and jellyfish. Last week we could have been better. Daniel Jones was bad. Kamani Vidal was bad. Kyle Monangai was great. DK Metcalf was bad, and Zach Ertz was pretty bad. So I really only hit on one of them, but we were pretty hot before that. Trust me. If you want to find out, go look back on our past calls. Also, I do post these clips on my Shorts channel, Fantasy Football Prodigy, or I also have a TikTok. It's the Fantasy Football Prodigy, FFP. If you want to ever just get the starts of the week, I post them all there. So, anyways, moving on to the rest of the matchups for the week. Bye weeks. We only got 4 teams on bye this week: the Cincinnati Bengals, Dallas Cowboys, Kansas City Chiefs, and Tennessee Titans. So between the Bengals, Cowboys, and Chiefs, there's a lot of good players that are not going to be available for us this week. The Titans, I mean, maybe if you're playing Tony Pollard, I don't know. Sorry to hear that. I know I have him in a league or two, but let's go ahead and preview the rest of the matchups here. So we have a overseas game in Germany. The Falcons 3-5. On the road against the Colts. So the Colts are the home team, even though they are, not at home. But the Colts are 7-2, coming off a pretty bad loss against the Steelers. I'm watching this game to see kind of how they look. If the Steelers kind of figured out, what the Colts are doing, or if it was just a blip on the radar for, a team that looked like they could be contending for an AFC championship. So on the Falcons side of things, you're starting Bijan Robinson, you're starting Drake London as must-start options. Other than that, Kyle Pitts has been sneaky good. I think I heard a stat that he has the 3rd most fantasy points, or sorry, not fantasy points, 3rd most receptions among all tight ends, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But I have him on my dynasty team, so I follow him a little more closely than most people probably do. And he's actually been pretty solid, not winning too many weeks, but he's getting PPR value because he is getting so many targets and catches. So he is in the tight end 1 category. And then other than that, that's pretty much all I'm playing there. I'm not playing Darnell Mooney, Tyler Algier. If you're in a super deep league, like a 16-team league, he gets a handful of touches, but more of a handcuff. And then on the Colts side of things, Daniel Jones coming off a rough week. I get it if you don't want to play him. The Falcons are a tough defense. They're giving up the 6th fewest points per game to quarterbacks on the season. Daniel Jones is still in that low quarterback one range just because he's been good this season. He's not running as much as you would want, but he's still playable, but not the greatest matchup in the world. Obviously you're playing Jonathan Taylor, even though he had a pretty down week last week, just with the game script not going their way, not really anything in the passing game. But he's a must start. So obviously you play him. And then wide receivers, like, the Falcons are a pretty tough matchup for receivers, but I think there's 3 guys that you can realistically start here. My favorite being Michael Pittman. He's been great all year. He's a really, really solid wide receiver 2, like a high wide receiver 2. Next up on that list is honestly Alec Pierce. He's been really consistently, like, actually good. Someone dropped him in my dynasty league earlier in the season, and I picked him up, and I think I've only started him like once or twice, but he's been really solid. So he's someone that you can put out there as like a wide receiver 3. And then Josh Downs, he had a pretty good week last week, if I remember correctly. Against the Falcons, if their defense shows up, which sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, it could be a lower scoring game where I don't know if 3 people can eat in this offense, but he scored a touchdown in each of his last 3 games. Yardage totals aren't crazy, 57, 39, and 42, but last week 9 targets turned into 6 for 57 and a touchdown. So he's my least favorite of the 3 receivers you want there, but he's still in that, low wide receiver 3, high wide receiver 4 range. And then Tyler Warren is still a good option at tight end. The Falcons are giving up the fewest points to the position on the season, but I think you're still starting him pretty much no matter what. Like, if you have Gadsden my start of the week and you want to try that out, I don't blame you. But, that's pretty much the only guy I would start. I mean, obviously, Brock Bowers already played. Trey McBride, you'd probably start over him. If you have Kittle, maybe you'd go with him, but that's probably pretty much it. So yeah. And then I think we covered that game pretty well. You're not starting Michael Penix at quarterback outside of maybe like a 2 quarterback league. So moving on to the next matchup, my Minnesota Vikings. Oh, by the way, that Germany game, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time kickoff. So gross. Anyways, my Vikings at 4-4 are hosting the Ravens at 3-5. My Minnesota Vikings just had a big win against the Detroit Lions. Much needed win to get back to 500. Still, I do not want to play this Baltimore Ravens team right now. Lamar Jackson came back last week, looked great. And this is just not a team that you want to run into because every single game for them is essentially a must win to get into the playoffs because they have Super Bowl aspirations. And, my Vikings are at home. Oh, I forgot to say the line. My fault. It's not even pulled up. What the heck? Where is it? So just backtracking slightly. Sorry about that. The Colts Falcons game, 48.5 point over under, which is pretty good. The Colts are 6.5 point favorites. This game that we're talking about now, Vikings Ravens, 48.5 point over under as well. The Ravens are 3.5 point road favorites. So they are favored on the road. You're starting Lamar. You're starting Derrick Henry, who I think is going to be great. He didn't get in the end zone last week, but he had a great game. With Lamar back, this offense should be a lot better than it was, when he was gone. And then at receiver, it's pretty much Zay Flowers and check out. I actually kind of like Zay Flowers this week. He was almost my start of the week. He's just been like not great. He's been missing his quarterback, so I get it. But even historically, he's been not the most like exciting play most weeks. But this week with Lamar Jackson back, the Vikings have a good defense, but they can give up some. They give up some plays. I'm a Vikings fan, and like against the Eagles, like watching that game, you saw the receivers get loose. Like there are times when I watch the defense, and even though they're good overall, Zay Flowers seems like the type of player where it's like he could kind of rip off a big play here. So I like him as like a high wide receiver too. Mark Andrews is playable. You're always hoping for a touchdown. He's in that tight end 2 range, I guess. But other than those guys, that's pretty much it. And then for the Vikings, not starting, Aaron Jones is questionable right now. So He's expected to play. So if he does go, I don't really want to play him or Jordan Mason. Aaron Jones might be okay for fantasy just based on his pass catching role. Last week against Detroit, he was 9 for 78 on the ground, 2 for 20 through the air, and he's kind of banged up. I mean, he's a running back, 3 low running back, probably a high running back 3. If he is out for whatever reason, Jordan Mason gets a bump, but that's the only way I would consider playing Jordan Mason. And then a receiver, Justin Jefferson must start. Jordan Addison is someone you definitely can start. He's been pretty solid since he's come back from that suspension. And, the Ravens look like a great matchup on paper. They are getting healthier. So, it's still a spot where I'd be fine to play him as like a wide receiver 3. The Ravens are giving up the 6th most points to wide receivers on the season, the 4th most to running backs, the 9th most to quarterbacks. But they were missing a lot of pieces. Even Lamar being gone does affect the defense in a way with like field position and stuff. So I think they're a tougher matchup than that. But Jordan Addison is playable if you don't have a better option as like a wide receiver 3. And then TJ Hawkinson, I'm just not starting him. I mean, yeah, he's been very disappointing. We traded for him, and he really looked great for a while, and it's he was injured, and I don't know what it is, if it's the injury or not having like Kirk Cousins or Sam Darnold lighting it up back there. But JJ McCarthy didn't put up huge numbers last week against the Lions, but it seemed like he made all the right decisions, made the throws that he needed to. So that was a good sign in a tough matchup with the Lions, and they got the win. So I'm hoping he takes another step forward this week. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. I'm surprised the Ravens are only 3.5 point favorites, honestly. I would love it if the Vikings could pull off that upset. I really would. But I think the Ravens are just so hungry to get a win right now. Moving on, Tampa Bay Bucks at home against the Patriots. The Bucks are 2.5 point home favorites, 48.5 point over under. Feels like every game we've talked about is a 40.5 point over under. The Bucks are 6-2. The Patriots are 7-2. I kind of like the Patriots to cover the spread there. I mean, or at least win. I mean, if I had to pick, it's kind of a toss up to me. So, I was surprised on the, I don't know. I guess it makes sense. The Bucks are at home, but Baker and the passing game haven't looked as good as they were to start the year. Now, granted, I think Baker was dealing with an injury of some sort or multiple. And Godwin, Mike Evans are gone. So that obviously, affects things. Emeka Egbuka was also banged up, even though he was playing. So they're coming off the bye week. They should be a little healthier now. So maybe that'll kind of make things better for the Buccaneers offense. But plus, most importantly, I played Bo Nix over Baker. So that means that Baker's going to go out and go crazy. Although, as like a misery hedge, I might have, invested some funds in Baker doing well in this game to kind of, offset the sadness of me benching him. So that could also make him do bad as well with my luck. But still no Mike Evans. Godwin is out. McMillan is out still, obviously. Bucky Irving at running back is going to be out again. They didn't put him on IR, but he's been out for quite a while, more than 4 weeks. And then it looks like Christian Gonzalez is going to be active for the Patriots. I know he's been kind of banged up. Ramondre Stevenson at running back is going to be out again. So Travion Henderson gets a bump there. And then Kayshon Boutte at wide receiver, hamstring, is going to be out for the Patriots. So Stephon Diggs might be more involved. Kyle Williams is going to get a chance to maybe have a role from what I heard. And Demario Douglas is an interesting deep league DFS type of guy, just because he's been making plays even with Boutte there. So with him gone, maybe that opens up the door for him to do even more. But Drake May is essentially a must-start quarterback at this point. He's like a high quarterback 1. I'd start him over my start of the week, Jaxson Dart. And then at running back, Travion Henderson is he's a solid start. Now the Buccaneers are kind of they don't give up a ton of production on the ground. But what I would like to see out of Henderson is maybe some more involvement in the passing game. Last week, he was the guy with Ramondre Stevenson out. And even though Terrell Jennings got the touchdown on the goal line, Henderson saw 14 carries for 55 yards on the ground. He saw 6 targets, turned it into only 4 for 32. The Falcons are a pretty tough defense as well. So, if he got in the end zone, I think we'd all be like saying, oh, Travion Henderson broke out. He got his chance. But he had 20 opportunities with rushing attempts and targets. So that's great. Terrell Jennings did get a goal line touchdown. I believe, I could be wrong, but I think there was only really one goal line opportunity in that game, and Jennings did get it. I don't know if that necessarily means Henderson won't get opportunities in the future. We just kind of have to see, did Jennings just happen to be on the field, or is it a systematic thing where Jennings is always going to be the goal line back, instead of Henderson when Ramondre Stevenson is out. But Travion Henderson is a running back 2 that you can put in there, and it's expected to be a decently high scoring game, 48.5 points. So I like that game environment. And then Stephon Diggs, I think you can play him. He started kind of slow, but he's actually been decent most of the time. So he's in that wide receiver 2 range. And then I guess I talked about Douglas and Kyle Williams. Hunter Henry is always someone you can put in there and hope for a touchdown. He's in that low tight end 1, high tight end 2 range. Not like, super exciting, but he's always a guy you can put in there. And then on the Bucs side of things, Baker Mayfield is in play. Especially because I did bench him. It was a tough decision. It's a 2 quarterback league where I have Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield, and Bo Nix. Bo Nix had been hot against the Raiders. I was like, I could see him going off, and he obviously didn't at all. But I do like Baker Mayfield this week in that quarterback 1 range, and hopefully he is healthy, because I think he was a little bit banged up earlier before the bye week. Patriots are kind of middle of the road against quarterbacks on the season. Against running backs, they're pretty tough, giving up the 4th fewest on the year. Rashad White is still playable just based on volume, but he's been pretty disappointing. I know he was the starter with Bucky Irving out, and then I think it was against Seattle. He had a huge game, his first game as the starter, but even in that game, he had 2 rushing touchdowns, which accounted for, a huge part of his overall points. He's been mostly disappointing the last couple weeks. I mean, really not doing much. And now it's a tough matchup. So he's still a playable running back 2. Just maybe limit your expectations a little bit. And then at receiver, it's Emeka Egbuka. Gonzalez is going to be active for the Patriots, it looks like. So he's a good cornerback. We'll see how much he shadows Egbuka, but offenses are creative with how they get these guys open. So he's been kind of not great lately compared to how he was playing earlier in the year. But like I said, I think he himself was a little banged up at one point. He was coming off an injury. Now they're, coming off their bye week. I would put him right back in my lineup as a wide receiver 1. And then a sneaky play in like a deep league or DFS would be Tez Johnson as like a wide receiver 3. With no Godwin, Evans, or McMillan. After Egbuka, it's Tez Johnson, Sterling Shepard, Ryan Miller, Cameron Johnson. If I had to take a shot on one, it'd be Tez, but you probably have better options. And then K. Dot at tight end is actually a sneaky good play. I picked him up to start him over Zach Ertz this week. He's in that low tight end 1, high tight end 2 range. He's just needed in this passing game with all the injuries. The Patriots are an okay matchup against tight ends on the season. They're pretty good. And he's just kind of necessary to the offense at this point. The last 4 weeks, 40, 65, 51, and 81 yards. No touchdowns, unfortunately, but He's had steady production there. So I think that's it for both of those teams, honestly. Let's move on to the next matchup here. We got the Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins. This could be a bit of a blowout, needless to say. Josh Allen kind of owns the Dolphins. They're 9.5-point road favorites. It's a 50.5-point over-under. So the Bills are expected to score a lot of points here. I guess we could start on the Bills side because that's honestly, I don't know if either of these teams are super complicated. Josh Allen, you're obviously starting. James Cook, he was on the injury report. But he's good to go. You start him as a must-start running back 1. At wide receiver, I don't want to start any of them. If I had to pick one, it would be Khalil Shakir. The Dolphins actually gave up the fewest points to receivers on the season. But I think Khalil Shakir could PPR his way to decent production. So, you could play him. He's got a pretty good floor. But not like an exciting game at all, or exciting play at all. Out of all the pass catchers, I mean, Dalton Kincaid with his tight end eligibility there, with a position that's kind of scarce, he's been really good. He's not playing a ton of snaps. He doesn't always get as many targets as you want, but he seemingly finds a way to get it done most of the time. I actually played him 1 week. I think it was against the Panthers in week 8. He was 1 for 23. That was his one like really bad week. I guess against the Jets, he was 4 for 37 on 6 targets. But every other week other than those 2, he's been solid, whether it's like a touchdown or he gets, high yardage. He keeps finding a way to get it done. So he was almost my tight end start of the week. The Dolphins are giving up the 5th most points to tight ends on the year. So he's in play. So the only guys I really want to play would be Josh Allen, James Cook, and then Dalton Kincaid is like a low to mid tight end 1. And then for the Miami Dolphins, I don't want to start Tua. He's not been great. Devon Achane, though, even though the offense has been up and down, we'll say this year, Achane is still just very consistent. He's probably the safest play at running back, or one of the safest plays at running back in the league right now, just with how they use him. So you have to play him. And then Jalen Waddle is very playable with Tyreek Hill gone. Jalen Waddle has been pretty solid. So I would be looking to play Jalen Waddle. Malik Washington has been very disappointing. With Tyreek gone, with no Darren Waller, I thought Malik Washington would step up and make some plays, but he just really he doesn't do much. Like he gets a handful of targets, but nothing ever comes of it. Maybe he's a fast athletic guy, so maybe he'll break off a big one at any point now, but it just seems like it's not really working out. And Jalen Waddle has been great. Like his last 5 games, his yardage has been 82, 99 and a touchdown, 15 against Cleveland. In that, was that the wind game? I can't remember. That might have been a weather game. 95 and then 110 and a touchdown in week 5. So he's been great. So fire him up with confidence as a borderline wide receiver 1, honestly, at this point. And then at tight end, if you want to take a deep shot on someone, Greg Dulcich was involved last week, but I'm not. I picked him up in Dynasty. He's been on and off my roster for years. He was 5 for 49 last week, so I'm not chasing that in a redraft league, but DFS or whatever, if you want to take a shot or stash him, totally cool with that. I think that's it for that game. Oh, this is a gross game here. Jacksonville Jaguars 5-3. On the road against the Houston Texans at 3-5. Did I say their records, by the way? The Bills are 6-2 and the Dolphins are 2-7. Moving on to this game, though. 37.5 point over under. The Jaguars are 1.5 point road favorites, so very close line there. And the big story here is the Texans are going to be without CJ Stroud at quarterback. The Jacksonville Jags are going to be without Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter at wide receiver. Tight end Brenton Strange is still gone. So both of these offenses are banged up, missing key pieces, and these are offenses that have question marks as is. So I don't want a lot of pieces in this game. Trevor Lawrence for the Jacksonville Jags is... Did I say Trevor Lawrence? Trevor Lawrence is not someone I want to start. The Texans are a brutal matchup across the board. They're giving up the fewest points to quarterbacks. Don't want any part of Trevor Lawrence. Let me see. They're giving up the 21st most points to running backs on the year. They've been kind of just a shutdown defense across the board. ETN is playable as a running back 2. Just probably limit your expectations a little bit. Brian Thomas Jr., even though, dude, I drafted Brian Thomas Jr. over Jonathan Taylor in a league, and I just can't get past that. They traded for Jacoby Myers, and Parker Washington is there. So without Brian Thomas, without Travis Hunter, some of these guys might be necessary. I don't know what Jacoby Myers. So I heard that Jacoby Myers is gonna play. I don't know what his role, like how much he's going to actually be used. It's a brutal matchup. He's, new to the team. So I wouldn't really be looking to play him, but I think he's worth stashing and seeing, what he looks like. But, once this, with a healthy receiving core, it's going to be kind of gross with, with Trevor Lawrence not really lighting it up. But the pass catcher you really want here is Parker Washington. He's a solid PPR option. Now the Texans are giving up the 3rd fewest points per game to receivers on the league, so it's a brutal matchup. But if you need a floor, Parker Washington, with all these injuries last week, 9 targets turned into 8 for 90. The week before that, bye week, and then the week before that, he saw 10 targets. It only turned into 4 for 52, but 19 targets across his last 2 games combined. It's a terrible matchup, but there's really no one else to throw the ball to, and I think he's going to PPR his way to at least a serviceable game. And then there's no tight ends you want here either. Strange is on IR, Hunter Long is out, so it's going to be Johnny Munt, Quentin Morris, it looks like. Johnny Munt, former Viking. And then for the Texans, CJ Stroud is out, so that hinders the whole offense. Davis Mills is going to be in there, which is not exciting. So I don't really want to start any of these running backs. The Jacksonville has a pretty good defense. Nick Chubb and Woody Marks have kind of been splitting work. And I don't really want either one of them, a committee backfield in a bad matchup with no quarterback, low scoring. They're nothing but running back 3s at best that you hope fall in the end zone. Nico Collins is playable, even, with the quarterback change, with the low scoring potential of the game, with that over-under. No Stroud. You can still play him, but definitely, limit your expectations a fair amount. I mean, we'll see. He's a talented player, and if he's healthy and he's out there, someone's got to catch the ball. So he's still in that, low wide receiver 1, high wide receiver 2 range. And then Dalton Schultz, he's always a tight end that you can stream, and he has his games where he's actually pretty involved. Like last week, 8 targets, 6 for 77. The week before that, only 3 targets, but the week before that, 10 targets, 9 for 98 and a touchdown. So, not an exciting option, but he's in like a mid tight end 2 range if you're like really desperate. Let's get out of that game. That's disgusting. This game should be a little more exciting here. The Chicago Bears at 5-3 hosting the New York Giants. This game could be fun. This could be a sneaky fun game. Even though the Giants are missing a lot of their pieces on offense with Scadaboo and Neighbors out. Well, Neighbors has been out for a while, but the Bears are 4.5 point home favorites. The over-under is 46.5 points. Let's see. I'm just checking the weather here. It looks. I'm kind of monitoring this little weather forecast. It's that time of year. You know, so far the games we've looked at have looked pretty decent weather-wise. Nothing too crazy, but always monitor, you know, the forecast heading into these games just to make sure there's not like crazy wind or other weather things. I guess the big thing with the Bears is the health of DeAndre Swift at running back. Kyle Monangai filled in for him last week when Swift was out, and he was great. It looks like Swift is going to be back in the lineup. He is questionable, but it's expected that he's going to play. So, you know, it's kind of frustrating. There is an opportunity here for someone to take advantage of this matchup with the Giants, who gave up the second most points to running backs on the season. If Swift is back, I think I'd be fine playing either Swift or Monangai. Both have risk. You know, Swift could come back and clearly be the guy, and Monangai could be an afterthought. Or he could come back and be very limited, and Monangai could be the leader. It really is a gross situation with risk. They're both kind of in that low running back 2 range, and there's just a lot of unknown. So monitor, you know, news reports and anything that says like, that indicates who might be like the true lead back if both are healthy. But if Swift is out, I mean, Monangai, it becomes a must start, honestly. I believe he was a 7th round pick, but he looked great. You know, and the Bears said they're going to ride the hot hand. So if you're going with the hot hand approach, that would be Monangai, who, you know, Swift didn't even play last week. Just so you know how good he did, he was 26 for 176 on the ground, and he saw 5 targets, only turned into 3 for 22. But he was amazing last week against the Bengals, and it's another great matchup. Monangai was so. Caleb Williams is a pretty good start here in this matchup. He's been up and down, but he's always a guy that can put up a big week. So he's in that low quarterback 1 range, and then at receiver, Rome Odunze coming off the goose. He's my start of the week. I like him to bounce back. DJ Moore. Was that last week he had his big game finally against the Bengals? Yeah, where he threw a touchdown, 4 for 72 through the air. I mean, yeah, he's a talented player. I'm confused as to how they don't get him more involved. He is a wide receiver 3 still, probably like a high wide receiver 3, maybe a low wide receiver 2. So he's playable, but Luther Burden is going to be back this week at wide receiver, so that's going to kind of make it even more messy. Cole Kmet is going to be back at tight end. DeAndre Swift is probably going to be back, so you know we're going to lose some of that consolidation of targets. I think Colston Loveland is still playable, but with Cole Kmet back, that definitely muddies the waters quite a bit. But last week he was 6 for 118 and 2 touchdowns. He had that big game-winning touchdown at the end. So he's an exciting rookie. But yeah, it's with Cole Kmet back, Burden back, I could definitely see it be a disappearing act. But you know, if you don't have a good high upside option, he's worth a shot. But definitely worried with Kmet back. And then for the Giants, Jaxson Dart is a great play. He's just been awesome. Like pretty much every week. The Bears are the 6th best matchup for quarterbacks on the season. And then, yeah, let me pull up Jaxson Dart's like stats here quick. Yeah, he's at a rushing touchdown in 1, 2, 3, 5 of 6 starts, which is just crazy. So that right there gives him a solid floor that you love. Yeah, he's had like at least 2 total touchdowns, passing and rushing every game. And it's a good matchup. So at running back, you know, I think a lot of us thought Tyrone Tracy would be the clear leader, but Devin Singletary came out and kind of had a lot of the work there. So I don't really want to start Tyrone Tracy or Devin Singletary. I'd probably go Tracy and just hope that he's involved as a pass catcher. But I mean, last week he was 5 for 18 on the ground, 3 for 19 through the air, whereas Devin Singletary, he was more involved on the ground. I guess, you know, 8 for 43, only 3 more carries, 2 targets for 8 yards. So I'm probably avoiding both of those guys if I can help it. And then at receiver, I think Darius Slayton is a sneaky good stash. He's been close to putting up some good fantasy games his last couple of performances. And historically, you know, he's been a solid player. They're missing a ton of their, you know, weapons. And the Bears are the third best matchup for receivers. So between him and Wan'Dale Robinson, I think someone is going to be good for fantasy, if not both. Wan'Dale is probably the better play just because of how much he's targeted, but Slayton definitely could hit a big play in this game. And then Theo Johnson at tight end. He's had his games, not, you know, not a big yardage guy, but he's had his, you know, fair share of touchdowns since week 4 on. So since week 4, 1 touchdown, 2 touchdowns, 0, 1, 0, 1. So it's kind of a touchdown or bust type of play that I could see, you know, putting in there. And yeah, I think that's it for that game. That could be a good one. Speaking of a good one, Rico Dowdle, the Panthers, 5-4, hosting the New Orleans Saints. Alvin Kamara listed as questionable. I don't think you want to play him either way, but I think this game is going to be all Panthers. They are favorites. I wish my thing would pull up here. Here we go. The Panthers are 5.5 point home favorites. The over-under is only 38.5 points. Rico Dowdle is a stud. He's my start of the week. I think you pretty much have to play him. He's basically a must-start running back 1 at this point. He's the clear lead back over Chua Hubbard, who's talented in his own right, but Rico has taken over, so love him this week. Ted McMillan, questionable. He's been on the injury report all week. I haven't heard lately if he has like an actual shot of missing. It's a hamstring injury. He's expected to play. He's been a little disappointing. You know, NFL wise, he's been good. He passes the eye test, but I think we were all kind of hoping for more for fantasy. Just not getting in the end zone enough on this offense. Now he's questionable with a hamstring injury. He's still very playable against the Saints, but it's possible they don't even need to throw the ball that much if they have a lead. You know, he's a wide receiver 2 at this point, but yeah, it hasn't been fantastic. But if you have him in Dynasty or whatever, I'd feel happy about having him. And then other than that, that's pretty much it for the Panthers. Yeah, not playing Bryce Young. Not really want to play any tight ends there. And then for the Saints, Tyler Shuck is going to get another shot here. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't really want to play anyone on this team. I mean, Kamara has been dreadful. He's getting older and the offense around him is just terrible. Last week he was 6 for 14 on the ground, 1 for 3 through the air. Did he have a fumble too? I don't know. I'm seeing negative right there. So yeah, definitely not like a must start at all. And if he's banged up too, that's even worse. And the Panthers defense has been better than it was last year. So it's not like a team that you can just like automatically pick on. I guess Olave is still playable. They traded Rashid Shaheed to the Seahawks. So, you know, Olave had been a target monster all season. You know, Tyler Shuck takes over last week. Olave only gets 4 targets, turns into 3 for 57. They did have like a historically low time of possession in that game, so that also played a huge factor. If you don't have the ball, you know, you can't get a lot of targets if your team never has the ball. But he's playable. He's you know, like in that like low wide receiver 2 range, I guess, and you hope he gets targeted. And Jawan Johnson, you know, I don't want to play him this week, but he's a tight end 2, and I would not be surprised if he is, you know, very involved. We saw him start the year hot. It definitely cooled down, but his last 2 weeks, 3 for 31 and a touchdown. The week before that, 5 for 53 on 8 targets. The week before that, 5 for 79 on 7 targets. So it's been picking up a little bit. And he's going to be needed with Shaheed gone. So it's it's someone to watch. And let's move on from that game. And Devon Vele. Are they going to use this guy? I mean, they traded decent draft capital for him. Is he ever going to like actually, you know, be used? Or do they just want to like waste their draft picks, the Saints? Anyways, moving on here. A little bit of a weather situation here to, I guess, touch on. The Browns at the Jets. So this is a kind of a gross game. The Jets are 1-7. They just traded their defense with Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams. And they take on the Browns at home, who are 2-6. So where do we even start here? So looking at the weather, 81% chance of rain. Why am I not seeing like a wind? I really wish I could see here. Let me pull this up here. The wind is what really matters. So, oh, also, I guess now that I am pulling up this wind thing, the Bears game against the Giants, there is a slight chance of snow, and it says wind 16-ish miles per hour. So that could be a factor. And then that Miami, well, why did that other website not have any of this weather stuff? I went to a different website. This is way conflicting stuff. So monitor the weather. I'll have to double check all this after, but the Dolphins game, it says slight chance of thunderstorms. So usually like if it's raining a little, it doesn't super matter. The Bucks game, slight chance of thunderstorms. The Jets game, definite rain. Not a lot of wind though. The only wind game looks like the Bears hosting the Giants, the Texans hosting Jacksonville, but they're in a dome. And yeah, that's it for wind. That's weird that those two websites like aren't the same weather-wise. Anyways, yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on this game, but Garrett Wilson questionable, expected to play. Cedric Tillman is back for the Browns at receiver. Don't really care. Yeah, so basically on the Brown side of the ball, Quinshon Judkins, you can play him against the Jets. I would have liked him regardless, and the Jets just traded their defense away, so he's a really good play this week as like a running back 1, high running back 2. I don't want to play Judy or Tillman. Isaiah Bond is out. Harold Fannin is questionable, so if he is out, I like David Njoku a little bit. He's playable, but it looks like Fannin is expected to play. So they're going to continue to kind of cannibalize each other a little bit. And then for the Jets, do we have a... Last I heard, they didn't announce a starter. Have they announced a starter yet? I think it's going to be Justin Fields. Do we know? Have they officially announced that? Justin Fields. He's slated to start. Okay, so he's going to start. So, look, he's always a guy that can go out and get, rushing production and be good for fantasy, but he's also a guy who can go out and score literally 4 points for fantasy. Against the Browns, a very tough defense, that is a game where I probably would be looking elsewhere. Just because I could see it going very sideways. If Garrett Wilson is back, that helps. And Garrett Wilson is someone that I would be looking to play, probably limit the expectations against the Browns a little bit, but he's still a really solid wide receiver 2. Breece Hall at running back. The Browns are a really tough matchup for running backs. They're giving up the second fewest points to running backs on the season. He's still a running back 2, but definitely limit your expectations there. And then I guess Mason Taylor would be the only other name of note. He's somewhat playable, tight end 2, but I wouldn't want to in this matchup. So yeah, let's get out of that game. My computer's being really slow right now. That's very annoying timing. Moving on to the Seahawks at 6-2, hosting the Arizona Cardinals at 3-5. Kyler Murray, quarterback for the Cardinals, is on IR now. You know, combination of injury with Jacoby Brissett honestly just playing better than him for this offense at this point. So Jacoby Brissett is going to get the start for the Cardinals. And I think that's good for all your fantasy options there. Trey Benson is still on IR, so if I had to play one running back, it would be Emari DeMarcado. You know, we thought it was DeMarcado, then it was Michael Carter, then it was Bam Knight. Last week it looked like DeMarcado was the guy with the juice. So he's the one I would play, but I don't really want to, I don't want to play any of these guys. DeMarcado is probably like a running back 3 at best. But yeah, a lot of these guys are, it's really gross. Last week, Bam Knight was 9 for 27, 2 for 20 through the air. DeMarcado was 14 for 79, 1 for -1 through the air. And was Michael Carter even? Yeah, he didn't even. Nothing. So, Jacoby Brissett, in his own right, you can play him in a 2 quarterback league. He's been really solid in general and for this offense, but he's been a career backup, so it wouldn't surprise me to see him kind of struggle at some point. Especially against a tough Seahawks defense on the road. At receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr. I like how they kind of got him involved early last week. So, again, it's a tougher matchup, but he's still a wide receiver 2. And then Trey McBride has been awesome at tight end. He's a must start. And then for the Seahawks, Sam Darnold has looked great at quarterback. Since my Vikings have gotten rid of him. So means good things for the guys on this offense. I'm actually playing Sam Darnold in a league where I got some bye weeks. He's a high quarterback 2 for this game. The Cardinals defense is actually pretty good. The running back room is gross. For Seattle, you got Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Charbonnet, you're kind of hoping for a goal line opportunity. And then Kenneth Walker, you're kind of hoping he rips off a big play. So both are very gross, low running back 2s, I would say at this point. But both are playable, just don't watch. And then JSN is, a must start. The team traded for Rashid Shaheed. So after JSN, I'm probably not super excited to play any of these guys. I think long-term Shaheed might be a good fit there. Right out the gate, it looks like he's gonna play. I do see a note that says he should be familiar with Clint Kubiak's offense from New Orleans. So I don't know. Maybe kind of see what his involvement expects to be. I know Torrey Horton is doubtful, so that should open up an opportunity for Shaheed. But the big one is going to be Cooper Kupp, who is questionable. I probably wouldn't play Shaheed, but he's probably going to be involved right away with Torrey Horton out and Cooper Kupp questionable, especially if Kupp is out. I mean, that's going to be okay, Shaheed might actually be a okay play. I'm trying to find a little. Kupp isn't fully healthy. He's got a hamstring issue. Yeah, is he going to play, though? Cooper Kupp news. Expected to play. Okay, interesting. So, kind of gross. JSN is a must start, but the other guys probably wait and see. And then AJ Barner, Elijah Arroyo. One of those guys could always score a touchdown, and Barner could do that little celebration he does, but not really looking to start. And Barner is actually listed as questionable right now. So in that case, Arroyo might get a little bit of a bump. He's flashed a time or two here and there where, he's an exciting. He actually, let me see. I'm thinking of that one. I think he had a big catch earlier in the year, and then he had a touchdown last week. But yeah, spent way too much time talking about those tight end options. Moving on. 49ers hosting the Rams. San Francisco 49ers at 6-3. The LA Rams at 6-2. This game should be good. Have I been saying the over-unders? Did I just stop doing that? When did I stop doing that? Because I was doing it. I was doing that, right? Okay, wait. I read the Browns and Jets. Did I say the Cardinals and Seahawks? I don't think I did. The Seahawks are 7-point home favorites, 45.5 point over under. And then this next game, another divisional matchup in that same division. The Rams are 5.5 point road favorites, 49.5 point over under. The 49ers won their earlier matchup this year when they were without Brock Purdy and a lot of their receiving options. It looks like Mac Jones is going to start again. So, yeah, Mac Jones will start even if Brock Purdy is active. Ricky Pearsall at receiver is still out for the 49ers. I've been holding on to him forever, waiting for him to come back. Super annoying, but on the Rams side of things, it's very simple. You start Stafford. He's been hot lately, and he's actually like a very solid start. Just because when they get to the goal line, instead of running it in every single time, they're actually like throwing the ball to Devontae Adams, and like Stafford is a lot better for it. So he's honestly like a really good start this week, like a low quarterback one. Devontae Adams himself is obviously a must start every week. Touchdown monster. And then Puka Nacua every week could be the best receiver play, so he's a must start. Yeah, he's had touchdowns every single week other than week 1 against the Houston Texans, who are brutal. I'm talking about Devontae Adams, by the way, here. And then weeks 5 and 6. Every other week he's gotten in the end zone. Week 7, he had 3 touchdowns. Then the bye week, week 9, he had 2 touchdowns. So, touchdown machine right now. And then, yeah, Puka Nacua is a must start. So, he was dealing with a bit of an injury, but he practiced in full. So, he's good to go. And then Kyren Williams. He's been steady, but kind of unspectacular, but he is, he's still a, low running back 1. He's still a really good player. And even though, the Rams are kind of throwing the ball more on the goal line than they used to, instead of just giving Kyren all the touchdowns, he's still putting up production for fantasy. So for the 49ers, Christian McCaffrey, you're obviously starting him as a must start. The Rams are giving up the fewest points to running backs in the NFL in fantasy, but don't care. He's involved as a pass catcher. Mac Jones is going to get the start at quarterback. Kind of sliced him up last time he played the Rams. I probably wouldn't be looking to start him outside of like a 2 quarterback league, but that's good things for their pass catching options. Yeah, he was 342 yards, 2 touchdowns last time he played the Rams. So you like that. You do like that. Jawan Jennings and Kendrick Bourne are going to be the top 2 receivers there with Pearsall out. Jawan Jennings is playable. Not a ton of yardage, but he's been injured and it looks like he might be getting healthier. So you can put him in as a wide receiver 3. And then George Kittle has also been a little disappointing since coming back from injury. I think you still have to put him out there. But yeah, I traded a lot for him in Dynasty, and he's been injured and then kind of disappointing. So I think you still roll him out there as a tight end 1, but it hasn't been as good as we wanted. But that could change. He's a great player. And then moving on to the Washington Commanders at 3 and 6, hosting the 5 and 3 Detroit Lions. 49.5 point over under. The Lions are 8.5 point road favorites. Coming off a loss, this team responds really well. The Lions, that is. And Washington is going to be without their quarterback yet again, Jaden Daniels, after he got hurt again. Not as serious of an injury as it looked like at first. He might not even go on injured reserve with a dislocated elbow. We'll see. But Jaden Daniels is going to be out. So why am I forgetting his name? Marcus Mariota is going to get the start. Terry McLaurin is also going to be out. Marshawn Lattimore at cornerback is going to be out as well. Luke McCaffrey at receiver is going to be out. So a lot of injuries for the Commanders. They're probably going to lose to the Lions here as 8.5 point underdogs, but On the Commanders, Mariota is an okay start in like a 2 quarterback league or DFS, just because he does run, and they're probably going to be trailing. At running back, the Lions are the 3rd toughest matchup in the league, and Ja'Cory Bill Krosky Merritt has been bad. Also, Chris Rodriguez Jr. in that backfield got promoted to team captain. There's been some buzz that maybe he's going to be more involved. I picked up Chris Rodriguez in a league. I have like so many bye weeks and injuries this week that I might start him. I'm deciding between guys like him and DeMarcado, and also like trying to factor in like how to make it all work without having to drop people that I don't want to drop. But wouldn't surprise me if Rodriguez gets more work. But I'm not really wanting to start either of these guys this week. I mean, I don't know, man. How do you put Bill out there? He's been so bad. Oh, he's been just awful. And then, no Terry McLaurin. So Deebo Samuel theoretically should be the wide receiver 1. It's been pretty slow for him, and now he just lost his quarterback again. So, wouldn't shock me if he disappoints. You kind of hope that they're trailing and he gets involved in garbage time, but it's been pretty rough the last few weeks here. I acquired him in Dynasty in a trade where I got Derrick Henry, and he's been pretty disappointing. Part of me wants to put Alec Pierce in the lineup over him. I feel like I can't do that, but my heart kind of wants to. After Deebo, it's guys like Jalen Lane, Chris Moore, Treylon Burks, probably going to be involved. He was actually, I think he had a catch last week, didn't he? He did have a catch for 14 yards. I think he played like about half the snaps too, so blast from the past. And then at tight end, Zach Ertz is, he's a tight end too. Even he's always kind of been, not always, but late career Zach Ertz has kind of been this like steady Eddie, unspectacular but viable play. But with how the offense has looked, it definitely limits his upside. He's a year older, and the Lions might just dominate. So I don't really want to start him. I picked up K-Dot to play over him, but he is still playable. And then for the Lions, I think they're going to just annihilate the Commanders. It's just going to be a matter of where does the ball go. So Jared Goff is playable at quarterback. It could be a game where they run the ball a ton, but you can still put him in there as a low quarterback 1, high quarterback 2. He's got upside, but he always has risk if they decide to just run the ball down their throats. Jahmyr Gibbs is a must start at running back. David Montgomery is actually a pretty good play as well, especially if they're winning and they're running the ball a lot. You're kind of hoping he falls in the end zone, but that definitely could happen this week. And then a receiver, Jameson Williams is a must start. They were already a good matchup, and now they're without Lattimore, so 5th best matchup on the season for receivers. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a must start. Jameson Williams, you can take a shot and hope he hits a big play. Boom or bust, low wide receiver 2. Last week he saw 6 targets, turned into 4 for 66 and a touchdown against the Vikings. So, risky, but he's playable. And then Sam Laporta is also a decent start this week. He's kind of boom or bust in his own right, but if he gets the touchdowns, he'll be good. The Commanders are the 6th best matchup for tight ends on the year. And then we'll move on to the Sunday night football game. The LA Chargers at 6-3 hosting the 5-3 Pittsburgh Steelers. The Chargers lost Joe Alt for the season. Omarion Hampton is still out. They have a number of, crucial injuries. Their O-line is kind of more or less falling apart. So that's not great for the Chargers. The Chargers are still 3-point home favorites. The over-under is 45.5 points. Justin Herbert is a great start this week. Almost made him a start of the week. A big part of this analysis and how this game turns out is going to be what Steelers defense shows up. Because they've had a couple good games this year, and then the rest of the year they look bad. Last week they looked great against a really good Colts offense, like a historically good Colts offense. So if that defense shows up, you might be disappointed in a lot of these Chargers options. But on the year, they're the 5th best matchup for quarterbacks, and Justin Herbert has been great, and he's been running the ball. So I'm cool with that as like a top 5 option. Kamani Vidal, he's really hard to get a read on. As soon as you believe in him, he does bad. Filling in for Omarion Hampton. But Jarrett Patterson was involved in that backfield. I think you can still start Vidal. Just if he has another bad week, though, it might be time to, temper expectations. He's a low running back too. I picked him up in a guillotine league where I lost Cam Scadaboo, so it's like I'm deciding between guys like him and Chris Rodriguez and Aaron Jones. So, right now I'm going with Vidal, especially with the health concerns for Aaron Jones being questionable. But at receiver, Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson are all playable. They're not all going to be good. The Steelers are giving up the 4th most points per game to fantasy wide receivers on the year. We've seen, these receivers go up and down all year just because there's only one football. But if you had to pick one at this point, it's probably Ladd McConkey. The last 4 weeks, he's seen 6, 10, 15, 9 targets, 7 before that. I mean, he very well could, be a Keenan Allen or a Quentin Johnston game. So if you have any of these guys, they're all playable. Keenan Allen is probably right now the least exciting just because his floor is pretty darn low. But you can play him, and it could be a Keenan Allen week. Quentin Johnston, he was kind of looking rough. Got in the end zone last week, 4 for 53 and a touchdown. So you can put him back out there. And then my start of the week, Oronde Gadsden at tight end. He's like a top 4, top 5 play this week. The Steelers are the 3rd best matchup for tight ends. Again, they shut down Tyler Warren last week, though, so we'll see what defense shows up. And, you might not factor him into this. You think about the 3 receivers, and a lot of people are kind of put on to the fact that, there's a lot of options. They're not going to be good every week. Gadsden kind of falls in that category where he's been good every week since he broke out, but there is still one football, and eventually there could be a game where he disappears. I don't want it to be this week because I'm relying on him in my guillotine league as well because I lost Tucker Kraft. And I lost James Conner, just a lot of injuries this year, but I don't know how you bench him at this point. So every tight end for the most part is going to have disappearing X. So, but not a lot of guys have the upside that Gadsden has. So he's like a must start. It is possible that you have like a Trey McBride or, George Kittle, Tyler Warren, and you picked up Gadsden off of waivers. In that case, that's a tough decision. If you played Gadsden over Kittle, I wouldn't blame you. I wouldn't, just because Kittle's been kind of, he's been a little disappointing, but that could turn around. And then for the Steelers, I feel like it's pretty simple. Jaylen Warren has been awesome. He is like getting a ton of work. I think you can play him pretty much every week because he's going to be involved. He's going to have touchdown opportunities. Last week, only 16 for 31 on the ground, 2 for -2 through the air, but he had 2 rushing touchdowns. I think he's pretty much an every week running back too, and maybe higher in the right matchup. Aaron Rodgers, I picked him up in that league where I'm starting Sam Darnold, and then Sam Darnold became available. I dropped Rodgers to pick up Darnold, but Rodgers is like a 2 quarterback type of play. The Chargers are the 3rd toughest matchup for quarterbacks on the year, though, so probably looking elsewhere. And then DK Metcalf, I made him a start of the week last week, and he just absolutely burned people. 2 for 6 in what was supposed to be an awesome game. He's been really, really solid for fantasy this year. I think you just roll him out there because if you do the thing with DK Metcalf, this seems like the type of year where if you try to predict it, you're going to be wrong, and you're going to have him on your bench when he does well, and you're going to start him when he does bad. I think you just play him. I think you just play the guy. If you have a stacked roster, maybe you don't have to. He's a wide receiver 2 right now. At this point, We were kind of hoping he'd be a wide receiver 1 with Rodgers. They're not peppering him with targets like I thought Rodgers would, but the Chargers are giving up the 4th fewest points to wide receivers on the year. So tough matchup, but I think you put him out there. Calvin Austin is probably the second guy you want there, is like a very deep league type of guy, but that's about it. And then I'm not really looking to start Jonnu Smith or Pat Freiermuth or Darnell Washington or Connor Hayward or any of these tight ends they have a million of. And then finally, the Green Bay Packers at 5-2-1, hosting the 6-2 Philadelphia Eagles. This should be it. Did I say the line for the last game? 45.5 point over under. The Chargers are 3-point home favorites. I think I said that. For the Eagles Packers game, the Packers are 1.5 point home favorites. Very close line. 45.5 point over under. Yeah, this game could be exciting. There are some injuries to deal with here. So for the Packers, Tucker Kraft is on IR. So he was probably their number 1 pass catcher that you would want. So at that point, who gets the bump? Matthew Golden has been pretty disappointing as the rookie receiver. He's also questionable right now. He logged 1 limited practice this week, considered day-to-day. So I'm not looking to start him either way, but Romeo Doubs might be very necessary to this offense. So he's very much so in play as honestly like a borderline wide receiver 2. This week, the guy you really want is Josh Jacobs. He's already kind of their whole offense, and now they're going to need him even more. So Josh Jacobs, each and every week you're playing him, but he's in that low to mid running back 1 range. I don't really want to play Jordan Love. He's just so up and down. You can, as like he's a high quarterback 2, could get the touchdowns, could not. Christian Watson is another receiving option there. He's like a wide receiver 3, I guess. He came back from injury a couple weeks ago. His first game back in week 8, 4 for 85 on 4 targets. Then the next week, 2 for 58 on 4 targets. So he's playable if you are in a pinch. And then Luke Musgrave is going to take over as the presumed starting tight end for the Packers with Tucker Kraft out. I don't want to start him. The Eagles are a tough matchup for tight ends. Maybe down the line, he's someone that we kind of are interested in, but not this week. And then for the Eagles, Jalen Hurts is a play pretty much each and every week. Packers have a pretty solid defense, but I'm still playing Jalen Hurts. You're playing Saquon Barkley. AJ Brown is healthy and good to go. He's been very up and down. He was on the injury report, but if he's good to go, I'm starting him as a low wide receiver 1, high wide receiver 2, even though he's been kind of, hit or miss. And then Devontae Smith is in that wide receiver 2 range as well. With AJ Brown in the lineup, it makes it a little more murky for the guy behind him in Devontae Smith, but I think AJ Brown missed week 8, then had a bye week, and it says he should be back. So and then Dallas Goedert, he keeps finding a way to like get in the end zone. So I mean, he's in the low tight end 1 range, very touchdown dependent, but wouldn't be surprised at all if he gets in the end zone this week. And I traded him away in Dynasty earlier in the year, so that makes sense that he's having a great run here. So those are all the matchups for the week. I hope you all have great luck in week 10, everyone except your opponents. Speaking of luck, here's a little story. So in my Guillotine League, it was me and the Javonte Williams manager battling it out to not get last place and get chopped. It came down to the Monday Night Football game, the Cardinals and the Dallas Cowboys. Javonte was doing nothing. He ripped off a nice little run kind of near the end of the game that put him within a point of passing me. And then I was really sweating it out. One of the last Cowboys drives, Javonte Williams runs in the flat, catches a pass. I lose. Full PPR. I move to the bottom of the lineup. I have no more players left. I lost. My season is over. And then Javonte fumbles the ball. The Cardinals pick it up, -2 for Javonte, and I retake the lead over the guy. And I end up winning. That was one of the craziest fantasy moments of my life, dude. And my team was like pretty good. Like, I know I almost got last, but like every week before that, I was like top or near the top of league scoring. It was just one of those weeks where, like, you know, the injuries were catching up, the bye weeks, my players who played didn't do well. You know, I at that point, like, I lost, like, I just lost Scadaboo. You know, Connor's been out for a while, but I didn't have him. Tucker Kraft, he either got hurt in that game or the week before. I can't remember. I think it was in that game. So he, Odunze had a goose. McMillan did nothing. So it was just a terrible week for my team. Even Jonathan Taylor, who's on that team and been carrying, he, you know, he had his first like bad game since like forever ago. So crazy little story there, but good luck. Hopefully you guys have that good of luck. I know it's hard to ask for, but good luck to everyone except your opponents in week 10. I will see you on the next one. Make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you are enjoying the podcast. Peace.